and I'll be teaching there, and I don't even know, but I remember hearing myself say that. Now, this is after I'd gone to White Sands and Los Alamos and already met some ET UFO people there too. So my entire life has been with an extraterrestrial family and guided, and then knowing things before they happen is a big part of this, Steve. So I want to get into that with the ACO Invisible College. But I'm not sure how to do this, folks. This is my first professional night.
Can we give you some feedback on what you just said before we go further down?
Yes,
Steve,
let's take
your time.
time.
If your psychic, they'll seek you out, which they probably did with you.
Say that again, please. I didn't hear you.
If the government knows you're psychic and they have ways to find out these things, then they will seek you out for membership in various organizations, which I'm sure they've done with TJ.
Right. And they know who's psychic because they can tell our DNA. Yeah.
I think they do. They either use other psychics to find out, or they have some sort of machine, some psionic machine that can pinpoint people with high psychic ability.
Yeah, they can track everything on a planet. They can tell you how many tigers and how many whales, and they can track certain soul signatures, certain signatures of DNA. And they're looking for the metagene. The metagene is a very the psychic gene, but it's also other abilities. So the people with the metagene. If you're saying
they can track DNA, then you're saying they have a machine similar to Cerebro on the X-Men. Is that right?
I haven't watched the X-Men, but it's like Star Trek, where when they came into a planet, they could scan for life, but it's much more detailed than that. They can scan for specific life and for specific people, so they know where everybody is all the time. And so what they tend, and this is from all my interviews and really research, they look for the people.
I believe that. I just wanted whatever details you know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Say that again. Go ahead. Say
I believe
that again.
that. I just wanted whatever details you knew.
Okay, so let me just finish this thread. So, and then they assign people handlers. So what I've uncovered is that my mother was my handler. Now, sometimes the handler knows they're a handler, and sometimes they don't. And often the handlers are being handled because they're handling everybody and everything and all the information. And so they use humans to handle, but they handle certain humans. So the human, like the mother might handle all of her children, right? Or the husband, and they arrange marriages. So what I've uncovered is that going back many generations,
I know that.
They put together so that the bloodlines would be together. They want certain bloodlines together so they procreate and make children. And then sometimes they intervene, and they intervene in the sperm level. They can mix things and put them into wombs. They can put a different DNA per child in the same womb with another child, so they're twins, right? And they come out and they're not even compatible with each other, or one's inside the uterus and one's outside. They have these weird births. So it's really far more extensive than we could ever have imagined. But TJ, you are highly prized, so they have been tracking you all along, and they started by they work on the attraction level. What do they call that? When the love bite. You find yourself falling madly in love and hot and passionate for them sexually, and you can't control yourself. They love bite people all the time, and so
they've done that with me.
That's behavioral epigenetics.
My last marriage.
Behavioral epigenetics is that field of study. So
have they done that with you? Yeah.
It's effective neuroscience. Yes, that's why I think I kept marrying a military man. Well, NASA and then government.
They've done it with you. I wondered if they'd done it with Janet as well.
Oh yeah. I sometimes I can ask questions and I get the answer. So when I was very young, I got sexually active like at 13.
Yeah, me too.
And then part of me was like raised Christian. It's like, I don't want to be having all this sex, because I remember when I was about 11 or 12, I said to myself, I'm not going to have sex until I'm at least 17 or 18. And there I was around all these sexy people who were older than me. And it's like, so it was like peer influence. But at one point I said, what is this? And then they said, well, we can take the DNA from in your vagina, basically, and use it to mix with other people. So they wanted me to have sex with certain people, even if they, wasn't orgasming. They would get the genetic material just from that interaction with me, and diversify. Wow. So they wanted to diversify my genetics, and they go, "Why my genetics?" Well, I'm related to the royals. I'm what you call the bastard line. Now, who are the royals? So we can get to that question.
Oh,
the royals are.
Well, I found out I'm related to 3 kings of England and Charlemagne on my mom's side.
Yeah, well, me too. I'm related to Winston Churchill and.
Okay, so that is the general rule. People have either royals or a lot of military people in their families.
Right.
That are involved with this.
Well, that explains when I went to England, I had a Viscount meet me, and then I think the Windsors or something like that. So there is some type of royal blood, even though we're the poor side of the family, right? Even when we come to America. When they came to America. But apparently all this is important, the genetics. So we need to make a note of that, everybody that's going to hear us on YouTube. Hopefully this will be important someday as we archive historical research. And we do recognize that there are many people that are scientists. We work with the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math. But we also work with the psyops and the psychology of all this and epigenetic psychology. And we'll be having our pastor on later and possibly Augie Nost. Is that how you say it? Augie Nost, yes, on. Augie, okay. Well, Augie deals with a lot of the universal level of psychology and epigenetics. And that's the one I told you with the television graphics guy in Florida. There's so many people that work with us, folks, that Janet and I can't possibly know all of them unless we've crossed them and had them on this radio show, just so you know. But there's so many people in our field of study. It's not as... It's global. It's just global. And so alienology encompasses a lot of people, and alienology includes brilliant people as well. Go ahead, Janet.
Can I ask a question? Well, before we get too far off of what we were talking about. So we've all had genetic connections. Now, I wanted to add another level, and Stephen and TJ.
Probably all class 2 duckies are related, I would think. On some level.
Now, I've even been made aware of my past lives, and the same pattern falls into that. So I have, various memories of interacting with royals, having children by royals. I had one lifetime. I had 2 bastard children by what was his name? Queen Elizabeth I, her lover. Maxim Dudley. No, Dudley. Sir Robert Dudley. So
now you're talking about reincarnation, right? So you have to define that as a separate subject. Reincarnation. So Steve, write that down.
Right. So I get the download.
I've always wondered if it's really reincarnation or whether people are just getting telepathic messages from the past. I mean, I think that's possible. Telepathy not only can span the universe in distance, but it can also go through time as well.
We'll put that under ACO. I have a whole group of people under that. So that's Education Research Association, Community Online Press, ACO, and Psychology, Epigenetics, and Reincarnation. Okay.
Yeah,
and the telomeres, living longer in space. Go ahead, Janet.
What I wanted to add to that before we forget. Okay, now I forgot what you just said. What did you say, Steve? Oh, the theories. Okay. In our DNA, we get the stories of our ancestors as well. So you might have a DNA of an ancestor that was burned in the gas in the chambers, right? So you'll have their memory in your cells. There's a lot of people studying this.
Gene expression. Maps. Yeah, cell division, gene expression.
She's talking about actual DNA stored memories. That's certainly a possibility.
DNA sequencing. Yes. Epigenetics.
It's proven yet, but I think that is a high probability.
Right. So we don't actually know if they're past life of a person or we're so connected on a higher level, and we're fractals of the one, right? So we get these stories that come through. But it's interesting to notice which stories do you access, and they feel personal, and they feel relevant to your current existence. And so if you come down into a soul level, into a spiritual level, into a feeling level, it's like, why do I so strongly identify with so-and-so in the past? You get your guiding myth, you get your archetypal story, and those things motivate your lives and help you move beyond the normal into the extraordinary, and that's where you can accomplish things. If you're in the mundane and the normal, you go through until you die. But when you get into
there really are DNA-based memories, and I would think that the more emotional ones that really had a lot of influence on that person's life would be the ones that would be most likely written down that way.
And if somebody takes the time to write it down, a lot of times you're fleeing from one side of the planet to the other, and the story doesn't get written.
And we didn't start writing things down until later. We did for billions of years, but we'll say for the sake of the planet, millions of years for here in the seventh root race coming or going. But the two main components.
We need to write it down at some point.
Well, Sumeria, we only found Sumer writing in the fire clay tablets, but we go back to the Anunnaki at one level and Anu and off planet, and prior to that, out of the solar system. And that's where we get into the Allied Command prior to that. There was many, many races besides the Anunnaki in chasing gold here. So we have to get into the history that's left on the planet. So that's going to be early ancient culture's origin, and various people are discussing that now at the same time that we're bringing out Bob Lazar and the Greys and various levels of alienology. So we need to make sure that we discuss reincarnation, psychology, epigenetics, and all that entails, because we have plenty of doctors and a lot of people that are interested in that. Plus, I was just going to say, and then I'll let you talk. Plus, I do in my tarot card readings, when I'm using my psychic abilities, I also tap into the overall universal life source and can usually do the past lives. And a lot of people think it's BS. But so what if our DNA sequencing, and the reason some of us feel extraterrestrial is because we have these gifts. Now, go ahead, Steve. And what were you? We trigger each other, folks. So that's what's happening. We trigger our mind, and we want to say it real quick, all three of us. But go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it is triggering, and sometimes it's important to say things before you forget or go on to something else. But, yeah, I think that it's very interesting that all this stuff's interconnected. It seems to be interconnected, and we all have to be discussed together. But at the same time, I personally have not wanted to go there as far as the past life stuff, because it introduces another level of complexity to an already complex and subject, and one that there's not a lot of evidence for compared to those things that mainstream scientists want to cover. But,
exactly, and I've done the same thing, and it's taken years to be able to deal with a lot of things that I didn't want to deal with, but yet it kept coming up in science and parapsychology and metaphysics and cosmology. They were crossing over, but that's our role. I do believe, genetically speaking, in the Human Genome Project that my daughter and I are part of, the Human Genome Project. Many of you are out there. Janet, did you want to say something about that?
Yes, I did. So in hypnotherapy, when we find someone that has abduction stories, they often go into their past lives where they were interacting with the same aliens. So there's a connection. And that's happened dozens and dozens of times. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't limited to now. They knew me coming in. They knew me before. I interacted with them when I was in Egypt. They interacted with them when I was, it just goes back and on and on. It is very complex. It can blow your mind. It can hurt your mind. It's so complex. But if you just unpack it and deconstruct it and